Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Recruit Military Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts where we'll be talking about everything from transitioning from military service to civilian employment, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Conley, retired Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, you're in the right place. Visit rmvets.com/live to learn more. Okay, folks, let's roll. Have you been hearing the myths, the challenges, the war stories of federal employment? No doubt, if you are in the military or transitioning out, you've heard more than enough advice, some good and some bad, about federal employment, federal hiring practice, and federal resumes. Today's guest is going to help us dispel some of those myths, rumors, and falsehoods based on his years of experience. Our guest today has had 10 plus years, more than 10 years of federal government service, serving as a Department of State Foreign Service officer in such places as Belarus, the Czech Republic, and St. Petersburg, Russia. He holds degrees in political science and Russian and Eastern European studies from Amherst College and the University of Oxford, respectively. For the last 13 years, he's been plying his trade as a full-time certified federal resume writer, where he says he spends a great deal of his time working with transitioning and retiring service members, helping them transition to a federal career. In addition to being an expert on keyword-based federal resume writing, he's also a subject matter expert on civilian resumes, LinkedIn profiles, SES applications, LinkedIn personal narratives, cover letters, and much, much more. All in, his services help his clients get referred, interviewed, and hired. So if that's what you're interested in, you're in the right place, so don't touch that mouse. Please join me in welcoming back to the show, Mr. Lex Levin.
Lucas, thank you so much. Wow, what a great introduction. I can't wait to meet myself.
Right. You know, if half the things they say about us are true, we must be pretty fantastic. What's been since May, you joined us, and the last thing we talked about was cover letters, an exciting subject. But now we're going to attack the great big beast, the federal resume and the federal job application. So let's get after it. And folks, now that you know who we are, we'd like to hear who you are. Jump into the chat window. Let us know where you're watching us from, who you're with, who you've served with, what your status is. Are you retiring, retired, transitioning out after a single term of service, a mil-spouse, a caretaker, or something else that we haven't thought of? We'd love to hear your questions, comments, issues, concerns, or just plain gripes. Time allowing, we'll get after them. Now, Lex, I'm not a huge fan of slides, but when you got a subject like this, it's a lot of material to cover. So what do you say we dive right in and give the folks, the viewers, what they've been asking for? All right.
Let's do it.
I'm an Army officer. I love my PowerPoint. Lex, I'm going to shut up and let you take it away.
Thank you so much. All right. Let me first start by saying that I'm now happy to be celebrating 14 years of resume writing. So, one more year. All right. So I've been writing federal resumes since July of 2009. And I have written a lot. I've seen a lot of terrible federal resumes. I've seen some okay ones, not too many. I've also heard a lot of myths and misconceptions about federal resumes. Federal resumes are important for veterans because veterans get a leg up in federal hiring. You probably all heard about Veterans Preference. That's just one program. There are others. But basically, the feds really like veterans. They want to hire veterans. Some agencies like the DOD and the VA and Homeland Security are very interested in hiring veterans in particular. So if you're a vet or if you're preparing to leave the service, you really owe to yourself to look at what federal opportunities there are for you. However, you do need to know how to write a federal resume in order to move forward with this. And this is what I like to spend a little bit of time talking about today.
All right. So it's not black magic. It's not witchcraft. There actually is a way to do it and do it right.
Yeah.
So let's see.
It's all right. Yes. It's a system and you can learn it and anyone can do it. So, all right. Federal resumes are much longer than the industry resume. Typically, they're about 5 pages these days. You will see more and more job announcements limiting your resume to just 5 pages. So They used to be longer. When I started, I remember seeing, monster resumes of 10 pages or more, 20 pages. Absolutely do not recommend that approach. Less is more. You only want to give the relevant information in your resume. But if your resume is 1 or 2 pages, it's not going to be competitive. There's just not going to be enough information for HR to find you best qualified. So think of a 5-page resume as something to shoot for. Typically, you want to have a very conservative format, no color, no fancy stuff, no fancy formatting. Try Times New Roman, Arial, or Calibri, which I really like. Calibri, it's a new font. It's still fresh. It's visually more interesting than Times New Roman or Arial. Don't make your font super small. It makes it hard to read, and HR doesn't like that. So 11 is okay. 12 is better. Don't have a long lead-in, talking about all your various skills and achievements. Short intro, just a few bullet points, and then get into your experience. Then talk about your education, your job-related training. Give at least 3 references. Federal resumes do ask for references, and then list all additional information in the back. Okay.
Normally, in the civilian sector, you'd withhold that information, have your references on a separate document.
Exactly.
You're saying the federal resume, it's included, same document.
That's right. If you use the USA Jobs Resume Builder, they will ask you for your professional references, which is how we know that they want your references on the resume. So these days, you can apply for almost all federal jobs by uploading your own resume instead of having to use the Resume Builder. That's a good thing, because I'm not a fan of the Resume Builder. It's a lot of work, and also they limit you with character limits. You can only have 5,000 characters per job block, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not, especially if you've been in a position for a couple of years and you've done all sorts of big things. It's kind of restrictive. So it's nicer to write your own resume, and then you can upload it. And that's a good thing these days.
Okay, great.
All right. Let's go back.
Back one? Yeah, I jumped the gun. Sorry.
No worries. I just want to say the sort of the most important thing that I want people to know today is that you have to customize your resume to the job announcement. Okay, federal job announcements have certain specific language that HR will be looking for in your resume. It's usually known as specialized experience, and you will see it in the job announcement where they say the specialized experience for this position is X, Y, and Z. If you're serious about competing for this job, that specialized experience has to be front and center in your resume, and you have to support it with specific examples. So you absolutely got to do that. You can't be general. Be specific and show how you've earned that specialized experience that they're looking for.
Is quantification as important here as it is in a civilian resume?
It is, absolutely. If possible, quantify. If you let people, how many? If you manage dollars, how many? If you manage programs, what was the scope? And the results, what did you deliver? How did you help your organization move forward? This is where metrics are invaluable. If you can show you've increased productivity, if you've improved retention and recruitment, if you cut costs, if you did more with less, and if you can show the numbers to prove it, you absolutely want to have that in your resume.
Awesome. So all you folks out there that have been beaten up about impactful, specific, relevant, quantified achievements, no excuses. Even in the federal resume, it's important.
Right. And let me spend a second on the format. I have seen way too many resumes where the format is what we call death by bullets. It's just one bullet after another after another. I really don't recommend that. It levels everything down, makes it hard to see what's more important, what's less important, and it tends to mix in your achievements with your duties and responsibilities. I would recommend this format that you see on the slide, where you have short, punchy paragraphs, and you use bullets for the really important things, for achievements, for accomplishments, success stories, and recognitions. because our eyes are drawn to the bullets. So you want to save them for the big stuff, for the high impact stuff. Otherwise, do short paragraphs. Don't use the big brick paragraph, which is another bad format that I see. People used to write them like that when they thought that a computer would read your resume, but it doesn't. In the federal sphere, computers do not read your resumes. Human beings do. So making it a huge brick of text just annoys HR, and you don't want that.
Okay, well, they see now. There's a myth that I've had passed on to me. It's all about the ATS.
Absolutely,
it's all going into a computer, and you got to jam that
Yes.
thing full of every keyword. And I've even heard that, cut and paste the entire job announcement in white font.
Oh,
your resume.
God.
So it tricks the computer.
Please don't do that. That stuff doesn't even work with the actual ATS systems in industry. No, absolutely not. USA Jobs is a human eye system. Actual living human beings will read and review and assess your resume. That has its own pluses and minuses, but there are no computers involved in USA Jobs. Well, caveat, your self-assessment answers, your answers to the self-assessment questionnaire, which almost every federal job will ask you to fill out as part of the application process. Your answers to those questions will be scored by a computer, which will generate a grade based on how well you answer those questions. But that's the only part of the federal job application process that involves a computer. Everything else is going to involve human eyes looking over your stuff. So don't waste your time with these tricks and, sneaky ways of getting around ATS. That doesn't apply to USA Jobs. Okay, there's no ATS. It's just human beings.
Somebody told me that you have to answer subject matter expert on every one of those questions. They say it doesn't matter whether you've done it or not. The computer you got to try and trick it. You got to hit subject matter expert, subject matter expert, all the way down.
That's why that doesn't work, because if you answer subject matter expert, the computer will give you a high score, but then the human factor comes in, and a living, breathing HR person will review your resume versus your questionnaire answers. And if they don't see evidence in your resume that you really are a SME for this and a SME for that, they will not accept those answers. They will revise your score downwards because there's no evidence of it. So you can try and game the system, but if you don't have the actual experience in your resume to back it up, then you're not going to get through. They're not going to give you that high score. So that's why it's very important to apply only to jobs where you can not only answer the questions strongly, but you know how you're going to justify them on your resume. You know what experience, what skills, what training and education you have that will allow you to answer at the SME level. Okay.
All right. So you might be able to trick the computer, but you're not going to be able to trick the human being that's going over. It makes perfect sense.
Lucas, this is where most people crash and burn in federal job applications. Frankly, from what I've seen, they either answer the questions too weakly. They understate their own qualifications because they don't want to brag, which I've heard a million times. It's not bragging if it's true, by the way. Or, which is even more common, they answer the questions well, but then they don't support it in the resume. Their resume says nothing about the specific issues that the questions talk about. And either one of those is enough to knock you out of consideration.
All right, I get it. Be honest, be accurate, and be prepared to face human scrutiny after you've gotten through the automation.
That's right. Okay. That's right. And again, only apply to jobs where you are really, really competitive. Do not pursue marginal positions because there will always be someone more qualified than you. So you only want to go for the lower hanging fruit if you're a federal job seeker.
All right. Makes sense.
All right. Next. Let's go to the next one. Right. So job announcements. You want to read the whole job announcement, obviously, but you especially want to focus on 3 areas. You want to focus on the duties, which is the first substantive section. And you've got to ask yourself, have I done this work and do I want to do this work? And if the answer is no, I would suggest clicking out of there and then. There are a million other job announcements to look through. So your approach here should be one of triage. You're looking for any excuse not to read further because there's always another opportunity to investigate. So you look at the duties and say, okay, I've done this work and I actually want to do it. Then you look at the very next section, which is called requirements, or sometimes it's called qualifications. That's where they're going to define the specialized experience that they want to see in your resume. So this is super important. If you can't show that you've done at least a year of full-time work doing the specialized experience, you're not going to be found eligible for this job. So your resume has to show that you've done at least a year of full-time work doing this stuff. And obviously, the more, the better. So if you've done it in several different job blocks, you should list that in those job blocks, even if it's a little repetitive, to show that you have strategic depth in this thing, whatever it is. And then if you're happy with the duties, if you're happy with a specialized experience, then you have to look over the self-assessment questions, because those are the questions that you'll have to answer if you plan to apply for this job. And this is really where the rubber meets the road, right? If you can review those questions and say to yourself with confidence by the time you get to the end that, yes, I can answer all or most of them at the highest level, and I know how I can back that up, that means the job is a good fit for you. And if everything else about it makes sense, like location, salary, and so forth, then you should really consider applying to it. If you don't have that confidence by the time you get to the end of the questionnaire, if you have a sinking feeling in your stomach, if you don't recognize the terms they're using, or you haven't done this or that, that is the universe telling you this is not the right job for you. So move on. All right. You have to review the self-assessment questions. It's a little bit tricky because they're not actually in the job announcement. You have to find a hyperlink, which is going to be towards the end of the job announcement. And that will take you to the self-assessment questions. Every once in a blue moon, the hyperlink just will not be there. I still don't know why. It's probably just bad HR work. If you're really interested in this job, then you hit apply and you kind of fake apply to it. You click through the various screens until you find the self-assessment questions, and then you can read them over there. But I do not recommend applying to a job without reviewing the self-assessment questions. They might ask you about stuff that is absolutely not a good fit for you, and then that would be a waste of your time. So look at the duties, look at the specialized experience, look at the self-assessment questions. If you're good with all three of those, then go ahead and think about applying.
All right, makes sense.
Okay. And by the way, on the next stage, if you are applying, you want to make a list of the keywords of the specialized experience and the keywords from that and from the self-assessment questions. And you want to use that in your resume to describe your own experience. Basically, you want the resume to resonate with the job announcement as much as possible to show that, hey, I've already done a lot of this stuff. That's why I'm the best qualified person. All right. Because remember, for the feds, experience trumps everything. Okay. They like education. They like certs, training, all that is good stuff. But if you have experience, that puts you head and shoulders above someone who doesn't. All right. So make sure your experience is represented in a way that's aligned to what the job announcement is asking for.
I've had some people tell me they use some kind of an online resume syncer, career skills syncer tool where you can input the job description and your resume, and the computer will come back and tell you, hey, you are 85%, 90%.
I know that, and I even used to use that back in the day. I forget what it's called, but yeah, basically it's two areas on your screen, and you copy and paste the job announcement into one, and then you copy and paste your resume in the other, and the computer sees what's the overlay between the requirements and what's in your resume. It's not a perfect system. It's not even very good because it's just very automatic. It's it's just the algorithm gives and the algorithm takes away, right? But it may not be a bad thing to use at the beginning just to make sure that you're getting enough of those keywords in. But I would not rely on it solely. I would definitely use it maybe at the start and then make sure that you keep refining it yourself.
All right. Makes sense.
All right, let's move on. Right. So you don't want to throw everything you've ever done into your federal resume. The feds only care about your last 10, maybe your last 15 years at most. Everything before that, they consider stale experience. And, that may or may not be fair. They kind of have a point. After all, how relevant is it really that you were a whiz at Windows 95, right? Like, do we care at this point? No, we don't. So you focus on your last 10 to 15 years, and you only list relevant positions. This will be a shock to folks who are used from industry experience. You got to list everything you've done. For the feds, again, it's all about the relevant experience. The feds don't care about gaps if you can explain them and if you could show that experience was not relevant. Now, it's not very common because people tend to stay in their lane, but I have worked with individuals who had some less relevant experience, and we left that off, and we put a little placeholder in the resume explaining that, and that's absolutely fine. So you use reverse cron, your current job first, then the one before that, and the one before that. Again, focus on your last 10 to 15 years, and then just, if you have relevant stuff from before, just summarize it, very brief, just maybe your job title, where you worked, and the years. If you're a little bit older and you're concerned about ageism, definitely lop your resume off at 2000. Don't go into the 20th century, and do not list your graduation dates if they are in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. You don't need to list your graduation dates. Just list your degree in the school, and that's good enough.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, and I hear people, and I hear that on the civilian side as well, where people are a little bit concerned about. I've got my degree, but I graduated like 15 years ago.
Now, the feds are better than private sector folks as a rule about this thing because, they have to be. They're sort of, they make the rules for how not to discriminate, not to be a bad guy at work. But, does age discrimination happen? Of course it does, in other forms as well. So, that's a concrete step you can take to eliminate that as a potential negative factor. Again, so cut your resume off at 2000, if not 2010. Only list relevant stuff. And again, show your work experience. Use the same terms as much as possible as the job announcement. Again, you want to set up resonance between your resume and the job announcement so that HR says, hey, this person's like done all this really relevant stuff. Let's get them in front of the hiring manager, let's refer the resume. So that's a winning strategy.
Okay, awesome.
All right, next. All right, so for every one of your job blocks, the feds will ask for information that private sector resumes generally don't ask for, like your salary, your supervisor's name, and their phone number, and maybe can they be contacted. You do need to list this stuff. Federal job announcements almost always ask for it, and sometimes they specify that we want to know all this stuff. You got to list your months and years for starting and ending dates. List your highest salary, whether annual or hourly. I often get this question, do we list just the base salary or all the benefits too, especially like housing information? Just the base salary. Don't include your housing benefits in that. For your supervisor, if you say do not contact, they will not contact them. But the expectation is that most of your supervisors should be contactable. Okay, if you say do not contact for all of your supervisors, that's kind of a red flag. Like, well, does this person not get along with anyone? So you don't want to give that impression. So it's very typical that your current supervisor, you don't want them contacted because you don't want them to know you're looking. That's fine. But for your older supervisors, unless there was a real issue, I strongly suggest that you put them as may contact. And put their phone numbers, not emails, unless there's no other choice. The feds much prefer phone numbers to emails.
And it's probably a good piece of advice for service members that are transitioning out of the military to go back in, before you get on the other side of that DD-214, before you've stepped out of the military community and many years have gone past. Reach out to your former bosses. Where are they? Where have they PCS to? What's their current phone number? What's their current email? Are they still in? Did they get out? Because if you're used to hitting them on that .mil email address and you lose contact, now you're looking at a federal job. Could be hit or miss. What if you need a security clearance later down the line? You need to do another SF-29. You need that contact information. So I'd say, get that house in order before you sign that leave form.
Yes, prepare before you leave. Build your network, get people's information, and also download all of your stuff like your performance evaluations, your major awards, the write-ups you received. You're going to want all that stuff when you build your resume. All right, so get your I Love Me book together and take it with you in hard copy before you walk out for the last time.
I got mine. Already ready to go.
Look how big it is. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who are like, oh man, I threw all that stuff away. I'm like, no, why did you do that? That's just self-inflicted wound. So get your network done, get your I Love Me book in shape before you leave. That should be part of your preparation.
Yeah, because you could get questions, especially when it comes time for a security clearance. Name somebody that knew you when you lived at this address 15 years ago. It's like, oh my goodness. What was my neighbor's name?
Those questionnaires,
number.
Those questionnaires for security clearance for federal employment, they are long and tedious. So you want to have that information captured before you walk out the gate. So, all right, next slide. All right, so contacting the supervisors, again, a lot of agita around this. The three options are may contact, do not contact, or contact me first. Again, it's absolutely fine to say do not contact my current supervisor. For your older supervisors, if you've lost touch with them, if you don't know where they are, perfectly acceptable to say not available. Okay, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, people move on, people pass on, whatever, that's fine. You can show your supervisors, even if they're retired, if you had a really good rapport with them, just list their current information, whether it's phone or email. And that's perfectly fine for both your supervisor information and for your professional references.
Makes sense.
Okay, all right, move on. All right, the last page, you want to include your education. You want to include the major job-related training you've completed. You don't need to list everything. List the major trainings you've completed. You want to list at least 3 professional references. Usually it's 3 to 5, but 3 will do. And then whatever additional information, like your military service on this example, specific technical skills, you want to highlight. If you speak a foreign language really well, that might be interesting or relevant. You want to list that there. If you've done significant volunteer or community work, you may want to list that to show you're a good citizen. So all this stuff goes on the last page.
Now, those awards, the Army will give out an award for anybody. No, I shouldn't say anybody. We get a lot of awards. Yeah. I'll leave it at that. And some of them, like a good conduct award, a good conduct medal, while it recognizes, staying out of trouble mostly. How much of these awards, of the fruit salad on our chest, the laundry list of accomplishments is relevant, really?
Right. And, Lucas, it's a good question. This redacted resume I sent you, this was from a few years ago. I've actually started being more selective in the awards I list. I don't list the good conducts anymore or the service medals because, they're not specific to the individual or not that relevant. So I wouldn't list them. But the major awards, like your commendation medals, your achievement medals, your MSMs, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, all the really high impact stuff, you do want to list them because it's all part of the puzzle. It shows you're a high performing individual and you've garnered official recognition for your achievements. So you definitely want to show that. For the really significant awards, I put those in the job lock as well as list them in the additional information, because you want people to see, hey, this person's achieved some, some serious official recognition in their career. They're obviously a strong performer. So, skip the good conduct, but if you got an RCOM or achievement or higher, definitely include that. And by the way, the language in those write-ups is usually resume gold, because it talks about the specific stuff you did to earn the award. It usually includes metrics and numbers. So hang on to that stuff. You or your future resume writer will thank you for it.
Now, I know we haven't gotten hiring preferences yet, but is there some connection between things like campaign medals, Purple Hearts, Bronze Stars, combat service that also feeds to veterans' preference?
It does, although your veterans' preference is going to be established by things like your DD-214, which you will need to upload if you're applying.
Okay,
your
so it's
VA,
also there.
Yeah, your VA benefits letter. There are several versions of that, but basically your VA benefit letter and your DD-214 will establish your eligibility for veterans preference. Okay. The awards, I mean, they're nice, but they're like the cherry on top. They're not the primary documents that the HR will be looking for. But yeah, if you've gotten a campaign medal, you definitely want to include that, because that's another validation of your eligibility. One thing I really wanted to go over, since you mentioned hiring preference, Schedule A. Okay, Schedule A is probably the single most important hiring preference that most people have never heard of. Okay, on my experience, maybe 1 out of 4 or 5 people have heard of Schedule A as veterans, which is shocking to me, because Schedule A is very relevant for veterans. Schedule A is shorthand for federal hiring preference that helps people with officially recognized disabilities. And there's a long qualifying list. It used to be very restricted. It had to be really severe, but they've loosened things up because of, all the people coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan with, wide range of conditions. And these days, even a chronic condition like back pain or knees or sleep apnea or diabetes might be enough to get you listed. Basically, it gives HR another avenue to hire you. Okay, it's non-competitive hiring, so it makes it easier for them to bring you on and then to convert you to full-time competitive position later on if you work out. It's fairly easy to get. What you need to do is you need to go talk to your doctor, your primary care provider, explain this to them if they don't understand it. And there's lots of stuff online about it. There are many resources explaining Schedule A. And then if your doctor agrees that, yeah, I think you're eligible, then they simply write a form letter. And again, there's an OPM example of the format to follow. They simply write a form letter. They got to put it on their letterhead and they got to sign it. But once they give it to you, that's it. It's a done deal. No one has to review it or approve it. There's no bureaucracy involved.
And you'll want to upload this document in addition to your VA determination letter?
Absolutely. You want to upload the heck out of it, and you want to submit your Schedule A letter with your DD-214, with your VA benefits letter as proof that you're applying not just a veterans preference candidate, but also as a Schedule A applicant. Okay, and the feds want to hire qualified Schedule A applicants. They have hiring goals for people in this category. I sometimes get asked, are people going to give me the side eye because they think I'm disabled or whatever?
Right.
No, absolutely not. The definition of Schedule A is that you're job ready and likely to succeed. And federal HR knows that. Okay, so there's this is a win-win thing. It gives them another way to hire you. It allows them to improve their metrics for hiring veterans and disabled veterans. And it gives you, as the veteran, a better shot at the job. So if you have any kind of serious health condition, if you were med boarded, if you were rated 30% or higher service-related disability, you have a pretty good shot at getting Schedule A eligibility. So read up on it and then go talk to your doctor and get that letter. It'll help you.
Okay, we talked for a little bit when we bounced over to hiring preferences, but we've talked about uploading documents.
Yes.
So it's more than just clicking apply and moving on. You've got to do some administrative work. What kind of documents should someone applying for a federal job expect to have to upload?
Okay, well, you definitely will need to upload your resume. You may or may not need to upload a cover letter. Cover letters are not such a thing in the federal sector. They often will say cover letter is optional, or they may even say do not upload a cover letter, or they will count a cover letter against your resume page count. So if they give you a 5-page resume, they say, or you can submit a 4-page resume and a cover letter. You absolutely submit a 5-page resume. You get a lot more value from that than from a cover letter. But every now and then they'll ask for one. So DT 214, your VA benefits, your Schedule A. If they require, if there's an education requirement, you will need to upload your transcript. Okay. That's rare, but it happens. Those are the major things. If you're applying for more senior position, like a senior executive service, you will have to upload narratives called executive core qualifications and technical qualifications, and that's a whole other level of pay, Lucas. That they are tough to write. They're a big deal.
Well, if I ever get there, I'll call you because that's way above my pay grade.
Please, I write them all the time, and you got to jump through a lot of hoops to get those through.
Now, I'm told that you can upload more than one resume and then pick the one you want to use for this job versus that job and so on.
You can upload up to 5, different versions of your resume. So you can do that, and that's fine. And it's actually useful because you do want to tweak your resume. Some people do that. Some people just change their working version and just keep uploading a different one. But you can have up to 5 resumes, and you can have up to 10 other documents on your USA Jobs profile, which is plenty, which is a lot. But basically, whether you build your resume using the resume builder, whether you write your resume and then upload it as a PDF, by the way, not as a Word document. PDF is a more secure format, so you want to use that. The biggest thing here is that you absolutely want to customize your resume to the job that you're applying to. People who don't do that are unsuccessful. You can't
resume suicide.
Yes, you cannot just take the same resume and apply it to a bunch of different jobs without making any customizations. That's not a best practice. So
and they stand out. The ones that are not customized stand out.
Absolutely.
It's obvious.
Absolutely. Yeah. So make sure that at least, the very least, your resume represents the specialized experience for the job that you're trying to get and supports your answers to the self-assessment questions. If you do that, then you have a shot at getting referred to the hiring manager. When that happens, by the way, people are excited when they get the email, you got referred to the hiring manager. That's great, but it's just the first step. It's then up to the hiring manager to decide who they're actually going to invite to interview. And they're going to cherry pick. They're not going to interview every single person that they got, that got referred to them. They will select. So you may very well be referred to the hiring manager, but you may not get picked for an interview. That's okay. The most important takeaway here is that if you got referred to the hiring manager, that means your resume worked. So,
and I'm told this can be a long process.
Absolutely. In my experience, most people who I work with, I'm happy to say they do get federal jobs, but it may take time. It may take weeks. It may take months. I sometimes hear from people from last year or 2 years ago saying, "Yeah, I finally got through." It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you gotta. Yeah, I know. I said that somewhere.
Yeah, I knew it was in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere. Think of federal hiring as a marathon. It's not a sprint. You got to keep going. As long as your resume is being referred to the hiring manager, you're doing it right. You're applying to the right job at the right grade level. You're customizing your resume right. So keep going. The stars will align one day and you will get referred, and then you'll get invited in for an interview. only if you're applying and you're consistently not getting referred to the hiring manager, that's how you know that something is off. So you want to stop applying, put on the emergency brake, pop the hood, and take a look and try and figure out what's not connecting here. What are you doing wrong? Are you not customizing enough? Are you applying for jobs maybe at the wrong grade level? Some people, like to stretch, and they apply for higher level jobs that they're not really qualified for. Figure it out, but don't just keep applying, because eventually, if you keep applying to the same agency and you keep getting rejected, eventually they're going to start recognizing the name, and that will work against you. So, if you're consistently not getting referred to the hiring manager, fix that problem before too much time goes by.
Awesome. Lex, we've got some questions here, and we've got a few minutes. I'd like to
Sure.
pull some out here. Let's see what we got. If I can get.
Oh, I was going to give my JFK quote, Lucas.
Yes, go ahead. and the point being what? The point that, look, these are not all cush jobs. This is work, so you've got to have your mind in the right place.
Exactly. And the biggest thing is public service, okay? This is another form of public service. Just as so many people go into the military because they want to serve their country, this is another way you can serve your country as a federal civilian. So keep that in mind. That is an important factor to get across in your resume, in your cover letter, in your interview. I want to keep serving. I served in uniform. Now I would like to keep serving as a federal civilian, but that matters to me. All right. This is why I'm applying for a federal job as opposed to an industry job, because public service is something that matters to me. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. That is still good advice all these years later.
From Jordan, where do I put my security clearance? Was that at the top?
Yeah, I put, if you, at the very top of the resume, is it possible to go back to that very first page?
Sure. Got all kinds of I was a staff officer for a long time. I got slides.
If you see up top, you want to put your citizenship status. You want to put your current security clearance. And if it's not active, that's absolutely fine. Say former, whatever level you were at. That's important because it shows that you had a clearance, that you were clearable, and that you could probably get another clearance again. So whether it's active or inactive, you want to put your highest level of security clearance. If you want to put your veteran preference information, whether you're 5-point, whether you're 10-point, and then any other really important information that you want the HR to see, like you're a recent graduate within the last 2 years, you're a current student in a degree program, if you've earned any kind of major cert, like you have your PMP or Lean Six Sigma or any kind of DWIA certification, you generally want to highlight as well, because those are big deals.
There was one question, I'm struggling to find it now. There was a gentleman who asked about an upgraded version of USA Jobs. Here it is, Jeffrey Medina. Can you talk to the upgrade of the USA Jobs that will take your application to one job and make it visible to recruiters looking for other applicants?
I haven't heard of an upgrade. I do know that when you upload your resume, and remember, you can have up to 5, you have a choice as to which of these resumes to make visible. And generally, people pick the latest resume, the most current one you've uploaded, to make that visible. Now, when your resume is visible to recruiters or to federal HR and USA Jobs, they can go through the resume database. And I have heard of people actually being contacted and asked if they would be interested in this job or that job based solely on their resume that was visible and searchable. That's rare. Okay, that's pretty rare. That's not something you should count on. But I have heard of it happening. So you absolutely want to mark your typically your latest resume as searchable, making it visible on the USA Jobs platform. And I think maybe that's what the person was asking about.
All right. Well, just a ton of great material today, Lex. More than we could fit into one show. We may have to do version 2 of this later and dive into a little bit more.
I'm here all week.
I'm here all week. Try the pastrami sandwich. It's amazing. Lex, before we close up, let's just imagine for a minute you have just a few seconds to impart one piece of advice on a transitioning service member, retiree, or mil spouse applying for a federal job. You could just leave them with one nugget of wisdom before we close out the show. What might
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. I would say, don't expect, how can I put this? Don't have an entitlement mentality, okay? Just because you served and just because you wore a uniform and you got promoted and you got medals and you did well, don't expect that you can then waltz into a federal civilian job, okay? It's a different ecosystem. It's a different environment. You have to prove that you are the best qualified applicant, okay? You will not be automatically presumed to be superior just because you're a veteran and you have veterans preference and this and that. You have to compete against all the other applicants, and you have to make the case of why you're the best qualified person for the job. So don't take anything for granted. Fight for that job, put your best foot forward, show them what you've got, and do not think that it's in the can for you, because it's not. You have to compete for it.
Lex, on behalf of the folks out there that are watching, and on behalf of RecruitMilitary, thanks for being on the show today. There's enough in here to keep us spinning our wheels and keep us busy for a long time.
My pleasure. I can talk about this all day.
If folks want to get in touch with you or hear more from you, how can they reach out?
Well, I think on the last slide there, I gave my contact information. If you would be kind enough to put it up, I'm absolutely, there it is. Absolutely happy to hear from people. Email usually works best, but if you need to call me, there's my direct line. I also have a website, and there's a contact page on there if you want to contact me that way. I'm not a lawyer. I don't charge for calls or emails. If you want to send me a resume and ask for some pointers, I don't charge for that. Get in touch. If you have more questions, please let me know. This is a big and complicated subject, but at the end of the day, it's a skill like anything else in the system. You can learn this, okay? You can do this. So if you want to put some time in it, get your brain engaged and go to it.
Awesome, Lex. Thanks again. For the folks out there, if you haven't already done so, do yourself a solid and register on www.recruitmilitary.com for access to over 16,000 employers and a job board of over 400,000 meaningful career opportunities. Stop in. You just might find your next career. That about wraps it up for us today. Tune in September 27th. My colleagues will be on RecruitMilitary Live. That's right, Gabby Pettigrew and Raul Torres. Along with a very special guest, we'll be discussing professional certifications, a hot topic. So all you aspiring Six Sigmas, PMPs, PHRs, and CompTIA warriors out there, don't miss the show. This has been Lucas Conley for RecruitMilitary. Until next time, good luck and Godspeed.